Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? What did you do for a living? And do you speak any German?
I grew up in central Alberta and then Calgary, high school in Calgary. And even though the German roots on both sides of the family, my dad could speak German, my mom, a few words here and there. But other than taking a German course in grade 10, that's the limit of my German. But um, but anyway, that's the limit of my German. So I can't understand it. There's the occasional word that I hear, but that's about it. Even though there's that strong German connection. On my dad's side, they came over to Saskatchewan in the late 1890s, and my mom's side was in the States in Wisconsin. So
Hmm.
that's the German connection there. And what I've done for a living over the years, I was a parish pastor for about 25 years and then a bishop for our British Columbia region in the Lutheran Church till retirement 2 years ago.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so what inspired your ancestor, Joseph Mohr, to write the lyrics to Silent Night, and what do you think his intentions were with the song?
Yeah, good question. Lots of speculation about that, of course. So yeah, it was my dad's first cousin a number of years ago that, you know, wanted to research to find out, are we really connected
Mhm.
genealogically? Because the story was always passed down that
Mhm.
we were. So he did some research and back in Germany and Austria and came back with the word that indeed we were connected to that line.
Mhm.
And so reading various stories, you hear the common everyday story about the organ being broken and the mice eating all of which could be true of how it happened, but indeed there was no organ for their Christmas Eve service. What I found out for the 200th anniversary back in 2018, as I was reading some more about it, I didn't realize that Joseph Mohr had written the poem about 2 years earlier. And the story I came across most frequently was that he had been called out sometime in December, 2 years prior, for an emergency baptism, probably something not uncommon in
Mhm.
those days. So he had been called out to do a baptism of a newborn. And as either coming or going, the snow is falling in that beautiful mountainous forested area. Snow is falling, and he sensed such peace, even in the midst of what could be, a tragedy for a family. And so he wrote those words.
Mhm.
Then, of course, 2 years later now, organ is broken. They won't have that for Christmas Eve service. Talks to friend, schoolmaster in town, who's a guitarist, Franz Gruber, and he composes the tune. And then that's how it was performed. And then reading the story about it, of how it got passed on. First the organ mender, the repairer, heard it, and then it went to another family who did some touring and all of that. It's a beloved song. So in the midst of that peaceful moment that he experienced, there also, if we look historically, this is at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, where Europe had been just riven apart by such brutality and disaster and death. And in the midst of that, what is it that this song resonates for us, right?
Mhm.
Uh, over these 200 years. And today, what does that mean in a world that is just so ripped apart? When we look at Palestine and the atrocities going on there, I have friends that are from Sudan and South Sudan and the civil war going on there. And, and Bethlehem in Palestine, what does it mean there today? Those are the questions we need to ask. We long for this peace,
Mhm.
what what are we doing? How do we we can't just sing that Christmas Eve. What does it mean to be oh, what's the word, I guess, to what does it mean to be agents of that peace and agents of that
Mhm.
love if it touches us so deeply? Those are, I think, the challenges before us.
Yeah, that's, of course. In this world, it's just like in Russia too, and Ukraine and things. Okay, can you share any family stories or traditions related to Silent Night that have been passed down through the generations?
Oh yeah, as you mentioned about Christmas Eve, of course, singing it, and we would learn the first verse auf Deutsch, and sing that, and taught that to our children as they were growing up as well. But we would, my side of the family would always open gifts on Christmas Eve, and that, of course, was a feature
Mhm.
each night, each Christmas Eve to be able to sing that. One of my favorite stories was when we were living in Airdrie, just north of Calgary, and I was the pastor there at that Lutheran church. And as a surprise for my spouse, as I was driving our son back and forth to school each day in December, we practiced the German first verse.
Mm.
And then he sang for Christmas Eve at the church. He sang, he must have been 8 or 9 at the time, and he sang the first verse auf Deutsch. And then the congregation joined in. So a very touching moment. I mean, as a very proud parent and all of that. But it
Yes.
also brings home the simplicity of the melody and the simplicity of the song when it's a child that leads us.
That is beautiful. Yes. Okay. How has Silent Night influenced the Christmas celebrations of your family? That's kind of a related question. So let's move on. What do you believe is the enduring appeal of Silent Night that has allowed it to remain popular for over 2 centuries?
Yeah, exactly. I think first of all, the melody is such a simple melody that people can engage in that. And when you combine melody with words that are poignant for people, then you have such a song that reaches across the generations and reaches across, country after country. Reading about the history of it now and seeing how many languages it has been translated into. What is it that's touching people? I think that goes back to what I said earlier about in the midst of chaos, in the midst of ripped apart lives, in the midst of inner turmoil. um, what is it about this song that reaches each of us? And for us, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, this time of year with the darkness, um, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Mhm.
there's something about candlelight and a gentle song that
Mhm.
pulls us into in essence, another realm of our experience, whether that's spiritual, whether that's reflective, and certainly coming from a church background,
Mhm.
that story about in the midst of all of this ruin in our world, what is this gift that comes so simply to us?
Mhm. What's interesting is our family, we played one song, and that was Silent Night that we put on YouTube. So on the same channel, you can hear us. I'm on the accordion. I can only play with my right hand, but hey, I managed to do it. Yes. Have there been any unique or surprising interpretations of Silent Night that you've encountered in your research or personal experiences?
I like listening to so many different artists, and now with all
Yeah.
the things you can find online, it's very interesting to hear how certain people will interpret it musically and all that. I don't think I've come across any, changes of words, basically. There, of course, in the hymnals that I've used over the years, it tends to be only like 3 verses. So what are those other verses that are there that I've been negligent about and haven't really looked at? So, no, I haven't heard of any other words that have been used for it.
Okay. So, in what way do you feel the legacy of your ancestor impacts your music and your attitude towards Christmas today?
Well, it's where it impacts me is so Chor Leoni choir. That's the last song of the evening. So even though
Um,
for this upcoming concert we'll be ending off with a couple of just hilarious, wonderful, sort of celebratory Christmas kinds of celebration songs. But then the choir gathers around the entire audience, lights are dimmed, and we sing together 2 of the verses, and then Cor Leone ends off with the final verse. And it's those moments that are sublime and very moving. I also find as a parish pastor, planning Christmas Eve services, we would always have the candle lighting.
mhm,
And honestly, Elke, it was like I could hardly ever sing that song, because it just become so emotional for me. And a lot of it has to do with that tradition and
mhm,
the excitement of that tradition and the meaning of that. But I would often have to just stop and not sing. And that's probably going to be the case at the church we're singing for the 6 concerts. I might be able to sing all 3 verses for a few of the concerts, but there are others where I just have to pause. And that's the beauty of it as well, is just to sit in that beauty of that music and the longing of those words.
And what message do you hope people take away from Silent Night as they listen to it during the holiday season?
I think the calling to be um, for peace to settle in to them, for them to be thinking about how can I be an agent of peace and love and joy in our world, for them to think about where are those places of rupture or hurt or pain in their own lives, to think about what does this mean, and if from a faith perspective, what does this mean for this child to come among us in the, born in, in Palestine in midst of a colonizing power, and just the, the violence of all of that. There are so many connections to our world today, and I hope people reflect on that and really seriously think about who we are as a people and what we're about, but also very personally, what does that mean for them as they sing that song?
Yeah, and I was in my preliminary research, I was made aware of the story of 2014 in Christmas in the trenches in Europe. And apparently the Germans and I can't remember who it was, the British, the
Yeah, British, French, Belgium,
British,
yeah.
French, Americans, they sang Silent Night.
Not Americans yet. Not they came in later in
Okay,
our
they
war.
came in later. Okay. The British and the French, they
Yeah.
apparently sang Silent Night in their own languages together on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's
So
just a story.
that's a beautiful story. Okay, so those are my final questions about the song. And now it's on to what's tell us about the upcoming events or concerts.
Uh-huh. Well, we're so privileged to have such a very loyal and enthusiastic audience. So we have 6 concerts at a very large church in downtown Vancouver at St. Andrew's Wesley United Church. So we are able to rent that space and have just wonderful audiences. And I think what not only the beauty of men's voices coming together, but also the beauty of that building, the timing, just as late as we possibly can, so that last weekend before Christmas. So people coming together, and we start usually surrounding the audience with our candles and sing a very reflective song. And then, as I said before, we end with Silent Night as well, where we come back and surround the audience. So those are moments that really touch people. We hear so often from folks about how meaningful that part of it is. And then there's just beautiful music throughout, always different arrangements, things to help us hear in new ways, to reflect in different ways. There's usually, as I say, a couple of fun and boisterous songs, even in the midst of the stillness of the night.
Yeah,
Um, so we have very wonderful audiences that come and attend.
that's nice. And is there like how long has the Chor Leoni been on? Like how long have you been doing this? And
Yes. Well, the choir's just over 30 years since Diane Loomer as the founding conductor, and then Eric Light as our he's been with us just over 10 years as well. And so it started off, I think, as a winter solstice concert,
Mhm.
and then, but now it's advertised as indeed a Christmas concert. So there are a lot of carols with the various arrangements that are part of the evening. So it's been good 30 years of doing that.
Oh, yeah, excellent. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to uh, tell people about the concert or about
Well, yeah, if they can't attend in person,
Mhm.
if they go to the corleoni.org website, you can click a link a to receive a link for a recording of of I think we're recording the first two shows, and then they frantically get it ready for you to have early before Christmas Eve. So if you can't attend in person, it's free. You just click, they'll send you an RSVP, and you'll be able to watch it. And so we have people around the world that tune in for Remembrance Day and then for Christmas as well.